Okay, that's it. Good morning, Minneapolis. Thank you so much for tuning in to Good Morning Minneapolis, brought to you by Onsite Public Media. I am Toussaint Morrison, your host today. Thank you. We're in a new place. You might be the highest in the room, baby. We the highest in the city right now. Look at this. Where are we? In obvious news today, my hair. It looks like the uncle of question mark from Radio Free Roscoe. If you know that, points to you. If you don't, that's okay. You're still at zero. Trivial, keep going on. We got you though. Admittedly, it has been a long time since we last saw you on this show, but we are so happy to be in a solid space right now. But since January, when we last saw you, a lot has happened since then. The entire month of February was a long year. But here we are in March 22nd, and you'll be getting this March 24th or 25th or something like that. But that being said, a lot has happened in February, and we need to start at the beginning. And at the beginning of February, we start with Amir Locke. Yes, Amir Locke. I know it's old news to everybody, but we need to talk about it. A 22-year-old black man who was fast asleep in the downtown Bolero Flats apartment complex before 7 a.m. on Wednesday, February 2nd, was fatally shot multiple times by Minneapolis police officer Mark Hanneman. The Minneapolis police officers were serving a search warrant and began announcing themselves after breaching the door. That's important to note. It appears in the video. Mark Hanneman kicked the couch Amir was sleeping on, began cursing at him, and then shot him repeatedly. No, it's not getting better, abolished, reformed, or even defunded. The Minneapolis police have more money than ever, and they're trawling out the same old racist that they did before. It's getting worse. For the record, Amir was asleep next to a gun licensed to him with a permit to carry. And upon being startled by Hanneman, Amir reaches for his gun and can be seen still pointing it downward in a position that you're taught to hold a handgun with no finger on the trigger. Yep, that young black man was better trained in gun safety than a Minneapolis police officer, like most people. I mean, I'm sure you watching this right now could take a gun safety class and have more resolve than a Minneapolis police officer. It's so easy to become a Minneapolis police officer is the end of that sentence. It's easy. It's very easy. It takes more time to become a hairstylist, a barber, a school teacher, a social worker, a counselor, and many more occupations than it does to become a Minneapolis police officer. The Minneapolis Police Department. Give us your mediocre, your subpar. You're from Lakeville and just happy to be carrying a gun in the city. Like Chris Lindahl, we guarantee an offer. A common question people asked after the MPD fatally shot 22-year-old black man Amir Locke was, who sleeps next to their gun? Well, according to concealandcarry.com, a lot of people do. 81.75% of gun owners sleep near their gun while it's not in a safe. So for that family member at the dinner table trying to victim blame Amir, you can just ask them, hey, what makes Amir so different to you? It's because he's black. That's the answer to that question. If you didn't get that one right, then you have negative points on your card right now. So we hope you got that right. Catch up. Soon after Amir was killed, Interim Police Chief Amelia Huffman seized the opportunity to lie to the press and public and say this.
The team was announcing police search warrant as they proceeded into the apartment.
Oh, no they didn't. Watch the video. Minneapolis police announced themselves after they breached the entrance and stopped announcing themselves after kicking the couch and shooting Amir. You can't spell Amelia without an L, an I, and an E. It's because Amelia lies. She be lying all the time. But wait, Amelia has more lies.
Even though you don't see all of the officers, the involved officer was just outside the frame in the direction that barrel is emerging from the blanket.
So there was an officer laying on the ground because the barrel of that gun never leaves 45 degrees off the ground. Line number 2-ish of this press conference by Amelia Huffman. Amelia Huffman, she gained notoriety in internal affairs and financial crimes, and she should be pretty well versed in the art of the cover-up. But unfortunately, she's the interim police chief for the Minneapolis Police Department, and her affairs are a lot less than internal right now. Here she goes again. Line number 3.
Of course, we all know these events happen very rapidly, and as there's a gun emerging in your direction, you're forced to make a split-second decision.
See, this one's a little more nuanced, where it paints Mark Hanneman as the victim, as if the circumstance were placed upon him, and that's just not the case. The police entirely created this environment of chaos and all but ensured that violence was the main option in a room occupied by a sleeping black man. During search warrants, better trained officers, or in the MPD's case, anybody not wearing an MPD badge, will stand at the door and continue to shout police while shielding themselves to give everyone a chance to wake up and come out. Or they'll announce themselves before they enter, unlike the MPD. These efforts are taken to ensure that state-sanctioned violence is hopefully not an option. Lastly, The biggest lie was here in the initial police report. The MPD refers to Amir Locke as a suspect here, 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 and here. Yet Amir was not a suspect. He was a black man sleeping on a couch. And here are all the media outlets that were perfectly happy to paint Amir as a threat in only so many words and a picture. Star Tribune, February 2nd. Headline: Man shot, killed by Minneapolis police during search, was armed. Picture of the gun. Reported Huffman's lie that officers announced themselves before entering the apartment. WCCO. Headline refers to Amir as, quote, man holding handgun, end quote. Repeated police lie that Amir was pointing the gun at police. Picture of the gun. Thumbnail for this article under SM is Amir's gun. Pioneer Press. First line of the article states that Amir had his gun pointed at officers. KSTP, pictures of the gun, repeats lie that Amir was pointing his gun at police. And then there's Fox 9. The headline calls Amir an armed man. Pictures of the gun, reports Huffman's lie that police announced themselves prior to entering the apartment, repeats the police lie that Amir was pointing a gun at police. However, no news outlets showed the gun Mark Hanneman used to fatally shoot Amir. The 20-plus armed SWAT officers outside and in the Bolero Flats, and the lack of medical attention afforded Amir after he was shot fatally by MPD. If anything, perhaps this can be yet another reason to question police reports. Understand that there are only so many learning moments in racial disparity in tandem with police brutality that it becomes an intentional moment. And the question to ask yourself, what's more egregious? That the mayor and the interim police chief know they're lying, or that they're too incompetent to know what the truth is? Speaking of occupations that require more training time than it takes to become a cop, Minneapolis educators are on strike for the first time in 50 years. Nope, no need to call the cops on that group of fourth graders having a study hall at noon in a local coffee shop. School's out for winter, mama. Minneapolis educators have been bargaining for more than a year with Ed Graff, the superintendent, and the Minneapolis Public School Board. And here we are. We're filming on Tuesday, March 22nd, 2022, and it's day 11 of the strike. What do the teachers want? According to Axios Twin Cities, the Minneapolis Federation of Teachers' priorities include a 12% pay increase, a raise to starting wages for education support professionals, and limits on class sizes. Just yesterday, the board offered 2% cost of living increases with raises of up to 12% for new teachers in year one of the contract and 2% increases for all in the second year, yet do not address class sizes and COVID protocols. A major number was to get all ESPs, educational support professionals, to $35K a year. The district's most recent offer, according to the school board, quote, bringing most of our full-time ESPs close to $35K annually, end quote. Most of them. Close to it, you say. Huh. Yeah, you can lead most of those horses close to the water, but thankfully those horses' union reps said, we're not drinking from that muddy puddle we didn't ask for. Try again. Hot damn. Ed Graff and the Minneapolis School Board should maybe take a page out of Joe Gothard's book, The Superintendent for St. Paul Schools. St. Paul educators were near strike until Joe Gothard said, oh, look, everybody. I checked under my Parisian couch cushions and found $3,000 for everyone and a 2.5% raise. That's exactly what you guys asked for, right? Gosh, it's almost like I had this the whole time. I don't know why it came to this for bargaining. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go back to staring at the state surplus. Ed Graff, we're sure if you look around your Victorian Chase Lounge in Edina, you might find the same amount that Joe did, or maybe more. The issue is Minneapolis is asking for more because it's been doing without for a very long time. In 2018 to 2019, Minneapolis had the 12th highest pay among public school districts in Minnesota. And today, it's now in 36th, trailing districts like Grand Rapids and Hibbing, which have a far lower cost of living, to partially quote Axios. They dropped 24 spots in just 3 years. A jaw-dropping number to add is the pay for SEAs, special education assistants. $24,000 a year to do some of the most essential work for students who may not be able to help themselves. This includes feeding students, helping students use the restroom, and lifting students. $24,000 is $10,000 below a living wage according to MinneapolisMN.gov, where many SEAs have to work different jobs outside of the 8 to 3. The low pay is also the reason there are hundreds of vacancies in the SEA position that offers 32.5 hours a week, which hamstrings some SEAs into bus duty to reach 40 hours a week. Today, the Minneapolis Public School Board has said that the almost and close to number below what the union asked for is their final, last, and best offer, which translates to,
you lose! Good day, sir!
Or it could also translate to the notion that because the school board has gotten this wrong for so long, they've put themselves in a position that their best and final is neither good enough or going to put a stop to the strike. Another thought and possible egregiously opinionated look here is that this may be Ed Graff's final.
Hey.
You see, Graff's contract is up in June. He was unceremoniously let go from his superintendent job in Alaska and is now facing the first Minneapolis educator strike in 50 years. Yes, that's another white man that failed upwards. Mayor Jacob Frey, you're in good company. Don't worry, you're not alone. You never will be. But don't worry, Ed Graff is extremely in touch with the people. He makes 10 times what an SEA makes, gave himself a 4.6% raise, and lives in Edina. If that doesn't spell out a man that doesn't understand inflation, the cost of a livable wage, students leaving the district for better funded schools, and not having the slightest clue of the poverty line in Minneapolis, then I don't know what does. That'll do it for us here at Onsite Public Media. Thank you so much for tuning in to Good Morning Minneapolis. You can click on the link below to support programs like this. We have so many other shows coming up for you. The Black Brewers Podcast. We have a show that's going to be filming in Northeast. We can't tell you about it yet, but it's coming out. And we also have The Basement Farmer. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can feel free to email us at onsitepublicmedia@gmail.com if you have any questions or topics that you want us to cover in future episodes. We have a lot of catching up to do. So we'll see you in the next one. And hey, justice, then peace.